and I just burned it. You're making a lot of noise over there, Pumpkin.
Oh, fudge.
It is still pretty sticky. So I just got done live streaming on YouTube. By the way, we live stream every night from 9 to 10 p.m. Central. Come hang out. I've been painting some Malifaux stuff, but I had an idea. Tomorrow, the boys are coming over. We're gonna play Kill Team, our first Kill Team game in a long time. We've been really busy. EonsOfBattle Editor-in-Chief Nick and my nemesis Sean, and we're gonna play a big old game of Kill Team. And I had an idea. We have a big Kill Team board terrain project in the works, and I think I can get it done by tomorrow. The boys are coming over at 12, and that gives me about 12 hours to build the board and 2 hours to clean up and get ready for game day. And I think, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I prepared for the battle ahead of me. Hours and hours and hours of painting, but painting with a purpose. I came up with the idea for a spooky forest. Here's my original artwork. And Radium Minis sculpted this for us for our Patreon. This is the terrain for the month of June, and Nick has finished printing it all out, so I am going to put it all together for our first Kill Team back. The boys are gonna be here in the morning, actually I guess in the afternoon, so that should give me plenty of time to build this thing, right? 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 I started, as all game boards do, with the base. So the foundation of this board is going to be foam. Usually I like to use insulation foam, but turns out insulation foam right now is crazy expensive, and all I could afford was this styrofoam. And styrofoam is less rigid, less dense, so I'm sure it'll be just as good. Also, I don't know exactly how I'm gonna cut it because it's not dense foam. It's made up of this stuff, which I actually got all over my car when I went to go pick this up because it was too big to fit in my car, and so I actually had to, in the parking lot, sit there with my keys and cut it to pieces, and so I'm sure this stuff's gonna be all over my basement now too. But I don't know how to cut it. A hot knife would be great, or a bandsaw, but I can't fit this on my bandsaw, so I'm gonna use a bread knife. Oh, I bet this is gonna make a wonderful noise. I don't know how effective this serrated knife was. Probably just a really thin, sharp knife would have been better, but I don't have one that's over 1.5 inches long, so I made it work. I double stacked the styrofoam to make it more rigid, gluing it with hot glue and smoothing the sides with 60 grit sandpaper. This also made a fun noise. You know, cutting the styrofoam is actually not the absolute worst, although all of the little shaving dust it produces definitely is. I have a lot of work ahead of me. The spooky trees are printed in 2 halves, the trunk and the branches, and to get rid of the seam, I used lots of super glue and I sprinkled on baking soda. This filled in the gap nice and easy. I love these pieces, probably my favorite terrain we have available on our Patreon. And speaking of Patreon, we also have lots of high quality terrain STLs hosted by Comics, Games, and Things. And we also have a Miniatures of the Month club. Also, viewer model critique videos, a weekly hobby hangout live stream, and more. It's the best way to support us, so head on over to Patreon to get access to even more Eons of Battle. We also have merch, link in the description. It just struck midnight, actually. It's been a little while. I can show you on my phone. Midnight, look at my Ray screensaver. But I think I'm in a good spot. I got the board cut out, and I have a full workday ahead of me, and it'll only be 8 o'clock in the morning, so yeah. I drew on lines to help me decide where the pieces should go. I want the big split demon face in the middle with the trees on the edges. I glued everything down using hot glue. So I wanted to give my board an uneven battleground. I mean, it's a forest, it shouldn't be perfectly level, and the way I did that is I actually took it outside, and I held it upside down, and I took a lighter, and I just kind of waved the lighter around and burnt the foam. And it worked really, really well. I didn't want to do it inside, so I actually took it outside and I was in the dark, only being able to see by the light of the lighter. But you know what? It got the job done. Glue time, goo time! I made up a slurry of 50-50 wood glue and water and coated all of the exposed foam. And I poured on some general purpose sand I bought from the hardware store. This stuff is a mixture of different grain sizes and it made for nice turf. Whew, I am loving how that's turning out. I have a space heater plugged in to make the room a little hotter so that it hopefully dries quicker, but the downside is the room is getting really hot, but that's good. The sand looks great. I'm probably gonna have to put on another coat of PVA just to keep that sand nice and stuck down, but whew, I was really digging what I was seeing. It was all coming together in the wee hours of the morn. While I let that dry for an hour, I moved on to some small trees. Let me show you how I made one of these. I tore off a square of tinfoil, crushed it into a small ball, hammered it into an irregular half sphere, then hot glued on my trees. These aren't new, they're actually just the branches without the trunks. You get a lot of mileage out of these STLs. Okay, so, too close. Check out this big brain idea I just had. The board is dry, but I'm really nervous that as soon as we start playing, all of the sand is gonna get knocked right off, so I wanna do another thin layer of PVA, but I am gonna mix in some acrylic paint with that PVA so that that PVA can be my first layer of paint. So I'll actually be getting some paint on the board. Yeah, there you go. I primed the trees and applied my paint glue mixture on top of the sand. Everything's going pretty well. And I made myself a sandwich. I was starting to run out of energy. Call this the old half and half because it's half classy French croissant and half cheap lunch meat that's gonna go bad tomorrow. While my board was drying, I decided to start a new little project, some cobbled together elevated platforms. The reason I'm making these is I do want there to be a little bit of vantage point, and kill team vantage point is very important, especially for shootier factions, and so I do want a little bit of vantage. Stuff like this provides good cover, but I'm just gonna make 2 of these little guys just to add a little extra kill team spice to the board. Easy breezy lemon squeezy vantage points, and after that little detour, my board was ready. All right, she's dry, I have everything built, I have everything primed. I mean, listen to this. That's pretty good. That is dry. So now, I'm ready to go. What time is it? It is 5:43, so I've got a good chunk of time left. I could totally see this getting done. Don't sass me, airbrush. I could totally see this board getting done. Time to paint. First, I airbrushed on some light gray, giving the board a mottled zenithal highlight. Then I sprayed on some magenta ink to add some color that'll hopefully show through on the final product. And then a dousing of green paint, then a dry brushing and a wash. It's a board. Couple of colors, dry brushage, and a wash, which I really hope doesn't disappear once it dries. I have a bad habit of putting not enough matte medium in my washes when I mix them, but I can be happy with this. And it's only a little after 6. I have plenty of time to accessorize. And what do I mean by accessorizing? Well, thanks for asking. I have this moss and this moss, and I'm gonna sprinkle it on the board. I used hot glue to stick it down, and after many finger burns, I learned a low temperature glue gun would have been much better for attaching foliage. On the branches, I slobbered Elmer's glue all over, and then I laid on some stringy moss. This actually looked really good. It turned the simple branches into a thick tangle. Then I stuck clumps of foam foliage on top. I'm used to always painting everything, but using pre-made stuff is really nice. I mixed up some watery Elmer's glue. I've never tried this before, but I was pleasantly surprised. I squirted on my hand. It is still pretty sticky. I set the board aside one more time to dry, and the clock struck 8 a.m. Time to feed the dogs. I went to bed for a couple of hours. All right, back in the zone. It is 10:56. I have about 1 hour before the boys arrive, and I have just 1 or 2 more things I want to do to this kill team board to make it real nice. The board is looking good, but it was pretty flat and desaturated, so I broke out the airbrush one last time. I sprayed on some light gray to highlight the skulls. My hands were a little shaky at this point.
Fudge.
Then I airbrushed on some black to make the eyes and noses darker. And then I sprayed blue ink over the skulls to give them a pop of color so they stand out from the gray sand. And last but not least, to hide the horribly ripped up foam sides, I wrapped it in electrical tape. I don't know if I recommend it, but it does look a little bit better than duct tape. After that, the board was finally finished. It was time to clean up. So as I'm cleaning up, what makes Sean my arch nemesis? Well, I'm glad you asked. He always beats me in kill team. And that's really it. But to add insult to injury, he doesn't own any of his own models. So every week he beats me with my models, which is okay. I don't mind sharing, but it is an extra little twist of the knife that he beats me with my own miniatures. And I suspect that today will be no different because I am so tired. I don't know how well I will be able to lead my guys to victory. All right, it is 12:05. The boys should be here oh, Nick's here. Well, Sean wins. Hooray! This terrain is made for demons by demons. I painted mine very neutral, but this would work great for Age of Sigmar, Warcry, Malifaux, maybe even a particularly upsetting Star Wars planet. Green for Nurgle, red for Khorne, blue for Tzeentch. You could even maybe get away with Slaanesh if you put speakers in the eye sockets. I really love this terrain. It's an idea I've had in my head for a really long time, and now it's a reality. I got this board done in a night, and I'm pretty happy with it. It's very different from the other terrain I've built. If I could go back and do a few little tweaks, I would love to add a bunch of grass tufts and maybe try out a static grass applicator to get some patches of grass. And I would like to paint on some footpaths to show where people have walked around this demonic landscape. The next time I do this, which will be never, I am gonna do 12 hours during the day because all-nighters suck. I am ready for bed.